Digital India Vision 8.0 in partnership with Google Workspace.
Please welcome Founder, Director, Digital Empowerment Foundation, Osama Manzar. And we are very glad that we are being joined by Simranpreet Singh Oberoi, co-founder, Punjab Education Collective, for this very panel. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us, making time out of your schedule. Over to you, Shereen.
Thank you very much, Ritika. Ladies and gentlemen, you can do better than that. A big round of applause for these champions of change here who join us here this evening for the very first conversation that we intend to have. And there's a reason why we have these three gentlemen here and why this is our first conversation this evening, because technology is really about social inclusion. It's about social impact. It's about social change. And these three champions of change, through the course of their career and the work that they've been doing, are trying to do exactly that. In fact, if you take a look at what the UN says in its roadmap for digitization, it talks about leaving no one behind, which essentially means leaving no one offline. As we just saw there on that audiovisual, while India has made a lot of strides in our digital journey, we still have just about half the population that has access to the internet. While there are plenty of reasons to be happy and to be satisfied with the progress that we've been made. In fact, I'll throw another number at you. In fact, this is a number that we just got that was released about 10 minutes ago. We've reached 50 crore in terms of the Jan Dhan, the no-frills bank accounts. Today, that number has touched 50 crore. The question now is, what is going to be the account balance? And as per my conversation with the State Bank of India chairman, the average account balance in a Jan Dhan account is between 2,500 to 3,000. So as we pointed out, lots of change has been made, but there is, of course, a distance to cover. Osama, I want to start by talking to you because, ladies and gentlemen, Osama has been doing this for a little over 2 decades now, 22 years to be precise. Osama, what has been the big change that you witnessed, especially in the past 5 years? And more importantly, the distance to be covered now, what do you believe needs to be prioritized? What should the imperatives be?
So, well, I think India must congratulate itself by talking digital all the time. So that's the 5-year, major difference. But more concretely, I would say that before 5 years, our approach to digital was more inclusion, and it's something like 1 + 1 or 1 + 1 is equal to 11. But what has changed in the last 5 years is that now we have no choice but to be digital. And that's very interesting for the people who are in civil society, media, to be concerned that when we reach to a point where we talk only digital infrastructure, digital life, digital access, then it is also important to know that are we enough connected? Are we meaningfully connected? And impactfully connected? Because then because even the new bill that has come, which has become an act, assumes that we are now living in a connected world, and that's the reason why we are talking about data. That's the huge difference that we have reached.
When you talk about data, and we are talking about data for development, in that context, from your own experience and your own story of taking Digital Empowerment Foundation forward, over the past 2 decades now, what's been the impact? How would you quantify the impact that you've made? And more importantly, what's the aspiration from here?
Yeah, I mean, aspiration is now, actually, before coming here, I was sitting with some of the fellows who work in rural India for our centers, which is spread across 2,000 locations. I mean, now people are working in the ground where people are coming and saying, please deposit 200 rupees on this link. And when our people are asking, what is this link? He said, this is the link that we have received on our text, that if you put 200 rupees, you will get 5,000 rupees. So I want to deposit this. What does it mean? It means that it has gone even beyond necessity to even getting caught into cyber
crime and cyber fraud,
where
yes.
You are now going to deposit money in a public space to say that I have got this lottery ticket or whatever, and I want to deposit this. I want to bring to your notice that this is a cultural shift. And this is, I'm talking about women, not even men, who are coming to our centers to do this. But more concretely, just to reply that, it is now as a social worker, as the social entrepreneurs, we are now more concerned that who is not connected. We are now more concerned who is the woman or adolescent girl who is not linked to the internet to have a better education. Now we are not counting these numbers that you showed on the screen that we have reached so much. For example, you showed one number that so many transactions we did. You can do 1 million transactions in 2 days because you are capable and you have money and so on and so forth. We are concerned who is not able to do transaction. So for example, according to the data, 338 million people did transaction, 99% UPI, right?
Yeah.
On internet. That is, and out of that, only 33% were from rural India, which calculates that out of 908 million rural population, only 122 million people were able to do transaction.
Yeah.
So I am concerned about the
No, absolutely. You're giving us a completely different perspective on those numbers as well, and that perspective is crucial, and that perspective is important, and that's why I pointed out that while we've covered a lot of ground and a lot of distance, the journey is going to be long, complex, and arduous. But Aniket, let me address that issue with you. And since we're talking about change, ladies and gentlemen, Aniket, of course, was the India winner of the Social Entrepreneur of the Year Award. That is an honor that the World Economic Forum bestows on social entrepreneurs. Osama was part of that, and Aniket has, of course, represented India and was the winner as well. So Aniket, once again, congratulations. But, I want to understand again from you, as Osama pointed out, that there's two ways of looking at the numbers. One, of course, is the glass half full, and the other is what more needs to be done to ensure that we take the glass higher and move the levels higher. In your assessment today, as you look at what's changed, but more importantly, what more needs to be done, what would you prioritize?
So I think one of our learnings at Haqdarshak has been very similar to what Osama said, in terms of there is a smaller percentage of rural population which is doing larger transactions. So while our number of transactions have increased tremendously, the actual number of unique users is still very low. But I think overall, one of the changes that we did, and we are seeing a large number of changes, whether you talk about banking correspondents, CSC centers, the kind of work a lot of social enterprises do, we have to realize India is an assisted tech country. India is, while we want to develop the best AI out there, it's all should be catered towards those champion agents that are there, that we have invested in, right? We have 100 million, 10 crore self-help group women members. Yeah. Potentially can be agents and are working as agents, whether you talk about ASHA workers, Anganwadi workers, so health, education, everywhere they are the champions, or banking correspondent agents who are doing a fantastic job. Yeah. But a lot of times we talk about technology to the end customer. But that while that platform is built, on the ground it is driven by the agent. So I think one, again to the point of, while the technologies and the access is increasing tremendously for us as a organization, I know 5 years back it was very difficult to integrate with the government. Now with Umang there, we've integrated with DigiLocker, Umang, PAN card. But we are doing that for the agent, so that agent can enable more access on the ground. And I think that realization while we are building digital tools is very, very important.
No, and I once again, it's important to get that perspective because, in conferences like this, at summits like this, you often hear people throw around buzzwords like AI and ML and so on and so forth. But as you point out, it's very important for us to realize the reality, the ground reality, and customize our digital tools to factor in that reality. But, explain to our audience a little bit about what Haqdarshak does, and more importantly, the impact, as I asked Osama, the impact that you believe you've been able to create so far.
So we built an eligibility engine which determines that what are the government schemes and documents you're eligible for. So we were in fact the first engine back in 15-16 that we had built. But it's, and now with AI and other things, we have improved that. But I think one of the things we did very early on was to realize this assisted tech journey and started training women agents on the ground and build the entire platform for that women agent so that they can help and deliver government schemes and documents. The most interesting thing in the last 2 or 3 years has been the support on the digital aspect of integrations. I think apart from digital, one of the other 2 key buzzwords that we are hearing is digital public infrastructure.
Yes.
And digital goods, which I think UPI has now become the poster boy or poster digital public infrastructure.
Poster girl. Why not poster girl?
Poster girl, poster girl. That's a digital.
Poster child.
Poster child of all the, actual use of such infrastructure, which is going now places all across the globe as well. And I think similar work is what we are also trying to do in government schemes. So that how can, like we visibly saw on the AV, that 13 crore plus people are on DigiLocker. So why should a citizen keep applying for their documents again and again?
Yeah.
Why can't you get the document and then open up 24, 25 government schemes that you can get from a caste certificate, income certificate? So I think a lot of innovation happening there, and we are building on that in terms of the platform.
Pop quiz. How many government schemes do you think we have today, ladies and gentlemen? Anyone wants to take a guess? How many government schemes we have today that are operational? You can raise your hands and scream out the number if anybody wants to take a shot at that. Nobody? Yes, sir. How many? 1,000? 3,000. Anybody else wants to take a guess here on how many operational government schemes we have? 57. That's it.
That's for you only.
Okay, Aniket, you want to give them the real number? How many government schemes are up and running as of today?
So it's one of those numbers where nobody can confirm, but it's about 20,000 in our estimate, because 13,500 are registered under the NPCI PMFA system.
Yeah.
They are not unique. There are still schemes which have an overlap, and we are counting state, center all combined. But that's the universe. 50 plus schemes are eligible for a rural family in India if you screen them. That's one family's eligibility.
Absolutely. So we don't actually have a number, but it could be in the ballpark of 20,000, give or take a few. But that's the number at this point in time. Simranpreet, thanks very much for joining us here. You're the newbie on this panel, so to speak, because your journey really began in 2018, 2019. Now, explain to me what you're hoping to do. And, we're talking about digital public goods and digital public infrastructure, but you're actually working with legacy infrastructure with state governments. You've started with Punjab. Explain to me what you hope to do and what the journey so far has been like.
See, the sad reality is that if you, not just Punjab, like anywhere in the country, you visit a rural government primary school in a rural area and you speak to the teacher, very often you would hear that the child is with me only for 6-7 hours. The majority of the time is at home. These parents don't care, they don't bother, and what do I do? And if you go and speak to the parents, they would say, our job is to send the child to the school, and we are doing it. This teacher is, useless, doesn't come on time, and doesn't care, and all of that. So now, this is what's happening in most of the schools. Now the reason really is, there's a big communication gap, right? Often, people are not coming at a common forum and talking about what's the role of a parent, even though I may not be able to read and write, but there's still a lot that I can do for my child. Can you help me do that? And the same thing the teachers can share as well. We are just 2 of us, and there are 100 kids over here, and we not just have to teach, we have to take care of the midday meal, we have to submit so much of data. Now, this happening in an entire state of Punjab, 1.3 lakh teachers, 30 lakh students. Now, to do this, you can't do without technology. Now, working at the state level with the education, the bureaucracy, and the entire state machinery. See, what we are hoping to do is essentially so the system is able to see itself, because you can't move towards improving a system without you exactly know what's happening on a day-to-day basis. So right now, there's a cadre of teacher mentors who are supposed to support the teachers if they're visiting a school, and all the observations are recorded onto a notebook. So there's a million papers getting generated every month, and there's no analysis happening. So the first step really is to make sure that the data capturing is happening on a platform so that you can then analyze it and do something about it. So far, our journey has been to just ensure exactly this, that there is a cadre of people who plays a very crucial role to ensure teacher motivation, to ensure teachers are supported. And whatever they are observing, whatever they are doing every day on the school needs to get aggregated at a state level so that the leadership exactly knows where to pay attention. Right now, they would pay attention, basis some serendipity. some random phone call,
Yeah.
but really enabling this data capturing to happen, and then ensuring that decision making is much more informed and is really able to address the real issues on the ground.
No,
And not just
Yeah.
addressing the issues. There's a lot of good work happening as well. The system is running, and we have some fantastic teachers, some fantastic teacher mentors who don't need any recognition, don't need any support. They're just there for the right reasons. They're there for children. Now, how do you amplify the good work which is happening as well? So the system needs to see that as well and have a mechanism to capture all the great work that is happening so that it can come, and then awards can happen basis some real data, and other teachers can, other people in the ecosystem can learn what's going on.
No, you're absolutely right. I think it is important for us to not keep reinventing the wheel, so to speak, and to also be able to diagnose the problem, the challenge, before we actually write out what the prescription should be. And the prescription shouldn't be based on serendipity, as you pointed out, but on real analysis of what is working and what is not working on the ground. I'll come back to you on that in just a second. But let's address this issue of the digital public infrastructure and digital goods. As I pointed out, the meeting currently underway in Bangalore, and at G20, we are hopefully going to present a governance framework as far as digital public infrastructure is concerned, as well as a definition of what digital public infrastructure is. Osama, how critical and how important do you think that is going to be?
I think this is absolutely critical. We cannot envisage 1.4 billion population will have a digital infrastructure at home. So we need certainly digital public infrastructure at various institutional level. For example, what he just said about education. We have 1.4 million schools. That could be a public infrastructure for access to education for teachers. And I also want to insert here that all these school teachers should be asked to do online WhatsApp, location-based attendance system, so that they are in the school. But that's a filler that I'm giving in this discussion. But public infrastructure is extremely important. The second part we have learned is that by working in rural areas, if you work with women, your impact is 4 to 5 times better, without really looking at accountability and responsibility that is given. And that's very important, that if you link digital infrastructure with women as an expertise, so that our poster girl should not be just UPI, but poster girl is the woman at the institutional level, from ASHA workers to women teachers to the household person. Because you immediately create an environment of domestic level and a community level of access to that digital infrastructure through the woman there. It just multiplies in a different world, So that's my, learning and contribution thing. And we have research which shows that if you work with women, you actually multiply impact 5 times. And that's very important. Digital, of course, digital infrastructure we need certainly, but can it also work with the expertise of women and their presence?
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I think the multiplier impact of that, not just at an individual level, but a community and a society level, has been well documented and well articulated. But Aniket, just to talk about the digital public infrastructure aspect a little further, but more importantly now, we've got several regulatory changes that have come into place. We've also now got the data protection and privacy bill that's come into place, which puts certain responsibilities as well as an onus on what would be a data fiduciary, what the responsibilities of a data fiduciary will be. How do you see that impacting, for instance, people like you who are working on the ground?
No, absolutely. I feel it will impact very positively, because in Europe also we have the GDPR rules, and I think it's high time. Now the largest population in the world has a very strong in-house data privacy laws. I think government's job is to build the guardrails and then let innovation happen. I think even in digital public infrastructure and digital public goods, I feel one misconception that a lot of entrepreneurs have, that digital DPI, DPG or anything open means free. Open doesn't mean free. Open means you're allowing people to build on that and use what you've built, and not kind of make it in a closed loop, which will foster more innovation. So what has happened in payments, right? NPCI came in, but then your biggest gainers have been private companies like PhonePe and others who have now, they are the ones who have gotten VC money and actually taken UPI. It's not been the government. Government has provided the infrastructure. It's provided the guardrails, the rules, and then allowed private, social, and other commercial innovation to happen.
On top of that.
On top of that. And I think we really can build in all spheres and spaces, whether it is, and starting from solving societal problems. Because societal problems, if we solve for India, I think that can lead to scale. Because the world is acknowledging our innovation in all spaces, because at the scale we are able to solve it. Right? Like people have solved for certification at the time of vaccination and others, but not at the scale of 1 billion people. So I think that really augurs well. And another example quickly would be what all of us potentially are doing at airports, which is DigiYatra now, right? Like that's also built on essentially the certification and DigiLocker model. And enhancing on DigiLocker, they built an innovation to try out on airports. Now, of course, there are a lot of people who will ask the privacy question and others, but I think that's a good example.
Rightfully so.
But that's a good example of how you can take a use case and potentially further monetize it and scale it. And similar things, if you look at the security angle, can be looked at even at bus stations and railway stations and multiple other places.
No, you're right. And, I want to take that forward with you, Simranpreet, because as we just heard there, so the government in a way has created the digital pipes, the digital highways, so to speak, and they're allowing the private sector to build on top of that. You're working with legacy physical infrastructure assisted with technology. What role do you believe there is for public-private partnership to really be able to address some of these challenges at population scale?
Right. So when we started and when we asked, one of the officers there, so how do you run this mammoth system? So he said there are 335 WhatsApp groups which are running the entire system, and there is a WhatsApp group.
I do feel India is being run by WhatsApp groups right now.
So, but see, ultimately, like when we were talking about data and what data could do, it's not just for the leadership, right? Data ultimately needs to empower the people who are filling the data, right? If you just go back right to the classroom, if a teacher is doing an assessment, assessment is not always to judge where the student is. Assessment is to judge whether I am doing my job well, whether the child has learned. So just imagine this at a district level, say, district which has 1,000, 1,500 schools. Now, if this kind of a data is being discussed at a district level forum, where all the actors who can contribute towards a better public education system and really looking at data together, like it's a teacher, a local, a parent, the IAS officer, the civil society organizations, all of them looking at that data together, and then really seeing where we are right now and what can we do. So it's not just for the state level leadership. I think there's a huge potential to decentralize with data, and districts across the country can really take charge of making public education system the priority.
No, absolutely. And, as I said, it's not just technology for technology's sake. It is trying to address a certain problem. In your case, at this point in time, it's trying to make good quality education accessible to a large population. It's trying to encourage best practices. And I think that's really what you're attempting to do. I want to end by asking each one of you to lay out for us the next 5-year roadmap that you have. And Simranpreet, I'll start by asking you, what do you hope to achieve over the next 5 years with what you're doing today?
So we are very hopeful that in the next 5 years, we will be able to encourage at least 10% of the entire people who work at the public education system to really take this agenda of making sure that what matters most, like whether children are learning or not, like that should be at the core of all the discussions, all the decision making is happening basis where our children are. And whatever programs are being introduced, whatever is being decided to be done for 30 lakh children, and I'm talking Punjab's context here, is not because somebody got an idea. It should be basis what this will really lead to, and whether this idea, whether there is buy-in of the mammoth force that we have of 1.3 lakh teachers, and decisions are not just enforced upon. The people who have to implement the decisions are being asked what needs to be done.
Absolutely.
The system needs to, our hope is that starts listening more and starts responding to what what the people are saying.
You know, it gives participatory governance a whole different meaning when you talk about it like that, and to really use technology to be able to draw people in and get people to work together will have a significant impact. Osama, next 5 years, what's the big target? What's the aspiration?
Yeah, so our top line is that there are 783 districts, so we want to reach at least half of them. They are backward districts, to half of them. We already have 2,000 centers. We are going 3,000 plus in the next 5 years or maybe 3 years, creating digital public access infrastructure at the last mile where there is nothing but this is the hope. So our target is that 759 million who are not connected, 48% who are not connected, and only 75% who are not meaningfully connected or not doing transactions should be doing it in the next 3 to 5 years.
Well, that's an audacious goal, but
Yeah.
we certainly hope that you're going to be able to move the needle forward on that. Aniket, the roadmap for you, the aspiration that you've set, and a listing on the social stock exchange anytime soon?
I mean, I think social stock exchange needs its own guardrails and a bunch of things in terms of helping us raise funds. But I think as an organization, we have audacious goals of reaching millions of people. But I think in the social security sector itself, my real hope and vision would be that citizens are not considered as beneficiaries, but as customers. And I feel digital revolution can bring that. Today, when we talk about social security, pensions, insurance, a rural person folds their hands and everyone in the ecosystem is so grateful that that has happened, rather than thinking of it as a service, which is happening in bill payments and others, but not necessarily in social security. Yeah. So I feel with digital infrastructure, and whether it's through assisted or direct, that empowerment at the hand of the customer. And if we stop calling those people beneficiaries and start looking at them as customers, actually, the digital revolution can bring about, open up these 700 plus million customers in the economy, which will result into, expansion of the whole ecosystem.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a very powerful note to end this conversation on. And I think this shift that you're speaking of not treating this constituency, this very large constituency, as beneficiaries, but as customers, I think that opens up a plethora of opportunities for the private sector, for entrepreneurs like yourself, not just social entrepreneurs, but actually being able to create services and products for paying customers as well. I think it opens up a whole host of opportunities for the ecosystem. Appreciate you joining us here this evening. We wish you the very best of luck. May the force be with you, and may you continue to power through and create positive change and positive impact. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Osama, for Simranpreet, and for Aniket Doegar today. Thank you so much.
CNBC-TV18 Digital India Vision 8.0 in partnership with Google Workspace.